Hello, everyone. Welcome to this talk of the core from Hello Tomorrow. Juan Botero from the consulting team, and I'm Innovation Acceleration Manager. I'm here today with Jeff Marshall. He's the Deputy CEO of RDS, with Amaël Cohades, co-founder and CEO of CompPair, and with Mikel Mangold, he's the Innovation and Project Manager for Venture Lab NGK. So I'm gonna let them present themselves briefly and continue. So Jeff, maybe we can start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and RDS.
Sure, thank you, Juan. So I work for RDS, or Rhythm Diagnostic Systems. We have developed a small patch-type vital signs monitoring system that we are targeting at post-surgery monitoring. So a patient after surgery would wear the patch at the time they are discharged from the hospital, monitors a comprehensive set of clinical quality vital signs as they make the journey post-surgery to their home, and this facilitates early discharge from the hospital. So there's a major advantage in terms of recovery of the person, as well as cost savings for the healthcare system. And I think there'll be a link to our website at the end, so if anyone wants to follow up on that. Briefly about myself, I'm American. I studied electrical engineering, and when I graduated, I moved out to Silicon Valley, which is where I'm at now. Started out at Hewlett-Packard, so in the context of this webinar, that's a big company, and so spent some time at a big company, and then fairly quickly had the opportunity to join a startup. The startup was called Applied Biosystems. We manufactured devices for genetic engineering research, and was fairly successful. It led to instrumentation for the Human Genome Project. Left from there to go to business school, and then had the opportunity to work in Japan for Sony, so another big company experience, and in the context of some of our discussions today, certainly interesting working internationally in a Japanese company. Did that for a few years, and then did some other unrelated things, and then a number of years ago joined RDS. We started as a Silicon Valley-based a startup developing the technology for this patch, and as of 2020, transferred our base of operations to Strasbourg, France. So we are now a Franco-American company developing this product and planning to enter the market first in Europe, and then coming back to the United States. And just briefly, we had the opportunity to work with Mikel and NGK in a startup challenge, and we're currently in the process of that, and so we can certainly discuss that more as we go forward. Looking forward to the talk.
Thank you very much, Jeff. What about you, Amaël?
Thanks a lot. Pleasure to be here as well. So my name is Amaël Cohades. I'm CEO and co-founder of CompPair. So at CompPair, we are on a mission to help manufacturers, consumers, and the planet, and specifically for the composite materials industry. When I'm speaking about composites, I'm speaking about the carbon, glass, or natural fibers embedded in a resin to create structural and lightweight components. Those materials are, even though they're very great and they're lightweight and used in many types of different industries like sports, nautical, wind, aeronautical, and generally mobility applications, they are sensitive to damage during their lifetime, and specifically there are tiny cracks that grow more and more until catastrophic failure into the structure, and this is a global problem for the industry. And at CompPair, we are bringing self-healing composites onto the market, and specifically our products are semi-products, so we are relatively high into the value chain, bringing new types of composite materials, but that are compatible with current manufacturing processes that match mechanical requirements of our customers and have this added functionality of repair and recycling at the end of life. We are founded 2 years ago in 2020, right before the pandemic. We are actually a spin-off from École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, so on the Polytechnic School in Lausanne in Switzerland. Actually, this is a follow-up of my PhD thesis, and so my background is as a material scientist, and I did run also a bit of studies in technology management and entrepreneurship. And yeah, a bit more than 2 years ago, we decided to start officially CompPair with this technology that was developed at EPFL. And right now we are in total a team of 20 people working on CompPair, and then speeding up our market implementation with our products that are industrialized. We can produce them at industrial scale, and we are now reaching first applications into the industry, but specifically focusing on verticals. One side sport, wind in a second thing, and the third one is the aerospace applications. Done for the presentation, and looking forward as well to exchange with all of you today.
Thank you very much, Amaël. So Michael, it's your turn now. We can't hear you.
I did the classical move, muted. No, I was saying it's my pleasure to be with you guys here, Amaël and Jeff and you, Juan. I am a chemist by training, so not too far from material science, and I studied polymers in 4 different countries, was France, Germany, Switzerland, at EMPA, if you know it, Amaël. And after my studies, I was lucky to move to Silicon Valley, where I joined the territory of Jeff, and I worked with the Bayer Pharmaceutical Accelerator, G4A, and then joined a biotech incubator called Collaborator. And at that time, my goal was to already try to partner some startups with the company, move back to Europe, and recently, I would say a year and a half, joined the venture lab of a Japanese company called NGK Sparkplug. And my mission is not to do the same, is to bring like external stakeholders, internal stakeholders together to try to bring new revenue stream, new businesses, and solve big problems together. So I would say in open innovation, I call myself an ecosystem orchestrator, and I had the chance to be involved in a startup challenge with Hello Tomorrow, that we just finished actually 2 weeks ago with a demo day in Silicon Valley and startups. And I was leading that project, so I was able to experience the need of startups, the need of the corporate, and how can you make it a little bit aligned and move forward. So I'm happy to share the lessons learned here today. Or we cannot hear you.
Now it's me. Okay, so thank you very much, Michael, and all of you guys for being here. Thank you also to everyone joining. You can always have a conversation with us in the chat on the right-hand side. We're gonna make sure to leave some time at the end to answer any questions that you may have. You can put them in there. And okay, so we just dive into our subject today, which is a corporate and startup collaboration. We have a very vast experience among you guys, and from both sides, some of you even from both sides in your own career. So we all know that this startup and corporate collaboration can bring many benefits. You can access new markets, get capital funding, scale up production, but it's not always an easy task, and especially for corporates, like they both startups and corporates work at very different speeds. So I guess the first question would be for you, Michael. Like, what's the interest in a company, like a huge company like NGK, to start something like Venture Lab, and what's the interest behind this, and why start working with startups?
Thank you very much, Juan. I'm happy to answer that question. So first, the first thing that I think is important to mention is not all the big corporates have the same model. And that's very crucial when startups approach companies, because it depends on the structure, it depends who they report to, it depends on the goals and expectations from a specific innovation unit. And in that regard, NGK Sparkplug is quite unique. So they know that they needed to join new industries and diversify their portfolio. We are right now market leaders in automotive tier 1 supplier. They're producing spark plugs and selling billions of it to motorbikes, trucks, cars worldwide in over 100 countries. But they know that this industry is in decline, and so the commitment of our company was to be bold. So they created a division of 320 people in 2020, and they launched a $100 million fund last year. And with that commitment, we also detached completely from the organization. We are in a virtual company, and we are sitting right below the board. So with that structure and organization, we now have most people working on business creation, which is venture building, entrepreneurship. We have, I would say, a commitment to invest in startups, but also to start partnership. And because we have this structure, we are able to see startups that could potentially help us build our internal ventures and go faster to the market. And we also have the ability to go fast into investments with startups. And I can tell you, this is not the case of a lot of companies that I know. You know, if you look at other innovation teams, usually they don't have the power of investment that is plugged in right with the, I would say, the scouting team. So they end up scouting or doing innovation program, but they don't have the ability to invest and start right away a partnership. And so in that regard, we are quite unique. So now, Juan, I think you asked me, what do we look for, right? Is it correct? What do we look for in startups?
Yes, it's on one side, yeah. What do you look right now for startups, but also like what's the reason behind creating something like Venture Lab for collaborating with startups in the first place?
Yeah. So the reason to create the Venture Lab is to be completely, I would say, launching a new culture, being detached from the organization, and really creating businesses faster. So we can generate new revenue streams. We have a target of generating $1 billion by 2030. And we know that to achieve that target, we will need to work with external partners, because especially in the medical space, like Jeff, we know how long it takes to go to market. You know, I have a lot of certification to make. You have FDA in the US, you have the CE mark in Europe. If you go to Asia, you have other certification to make. So you cannot just go have your idea and go on the market. So for us, partnering with startups like RGS or any others is to just be faster and to join join forces. Potentially they have an IP. Potentially we have the scaling power that we can use. We can help them to maybe assemble. We can help them maybe to distribute across the world. We can help them to access to clinics or even finance clinical trials with the money power that we have. And I would say is really leveraging both assets, right? Technological power from the startups, and for us it's the scaling power, and go faster together, make this, creating that win-win situation and generating bigger revenue streams for both parties.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Yes, I think then the natural question would be for Jeff. We, as they mentioned, we recently launched an acceleration program among both of them, and RDS was one of the finalist startups. It is right now on the last stages of the process. So maybe Jeff, you can talk to us a little bit like what motivated you to participate in a project like this. It's of course it's beneficial for a startup like RDS, but at the end it's also new change of strategy. Probably if you have a product like ready to go to market, probably is going to change a little bit your pipeline. So what motivated RDS to make this huge bet on participating in this acceleration program?
Okay, thank you, Juan. I think a number of the participants, maybe most of the participants, are startups, and so they know the startup games, and you know, in a words, creating and a successful startup is difficult. I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but certainly most of them fail. So being a successful startup, which is what we all try to do, has certain difficulties. And I think startups generally start with an idea and probably a desire to change the world, to do something different, to see an opportunity. You know, obviously one of the difficulties with startups is money. Probably the major difficulty that always comes into play is money. So I'm sure Amaël can comment on that as well. So in the startup game, you know, it's taking your idea, finding some people to raise some cash, using that to develop the product along the way, and then there's always the next stage of cash, and we all know the series of fundraising. So you know, for a startup, I think that's the name of the game. We always have, we know what our cash balance is, and we know what our burn rate, and we know when that hits zero, and that drives the decision of the next stage of fundraising. So certainly in this context, a major opportunity in working with a big company like NGK or any other big company is the access to capital. So, you know, I'll highlight that. And before Juan and Mikel both mentioned the startup challenge that we performed over the last few months. And certainly on the table from the beginning was, what are the opportunities? What does NGK want? What does RDS want? You know, I'd highlight the fundraising is front and center for us, but opportunities to work with a strategic partner that can bring technology to the table, can bring marketing opportunities to the table, can bring expertise to the table. As a small startup, you're always have a small team with limited possibilities. So in the context of this startup challenge, NGK initiated this and worked with Hello Tomorrow to put together the challenge. We got an invite to that, and the starting part was learning more about the process and NGK and what they wanted. There was quite a bit of information and back and forth online, as well as a webinar that NGK put together to explain that. From my point of view, the first question was, is this worth our time? You know, as a startup, you have limited resources and limited time, and what are the chances of this turning into something successful? So that was a judgment call on my part. So, you know, a couple of things I'd highlight is all along the way is to learn more and ask questions, and to really try to understand the other side, and to do that in any way possible, whether that's Google searches of learning about the company, you know, personal interactions, lots of conversations, ask lots of questions. So for us, you know, starting from a point a few months ago where we learned about this challenge to an application process, to some initial discussions, and then a very intensive process of working together, really to target where we can work together for, as Mikel mentioned, a win-win. So bringing together the resources from a big company, whether that's capital or expertise or market access, with the technology and the ideas that we have developed. And the goal is really to understand each other, understand each other's culture, the people, the goals, the initiatives, and really say, is there something here? At this point, the process is in process, and we're continuing. It's been very productive, and it's been a great experience. And at this point, we're targeting where exactly those collaboration opportunities are. So hopefully that gives some insight in terms of the perspective of RDS and the Hello Tomorrow work and working with NGK, and sort of the different perspective of a startup versus a big corporate like NGK. I'll hand it back to you, Juan.
Yeah, so it's not a short process, and as we were saying, startups and corporates, they move at very, very different speeds, and that can be sometimes frustrating for both sides, and especially like in the medical industry, this can take very long, as well as in the materials industry, like CompPair. So maybe Amaël, you can tell us a little bit about how to manage this uncertainty from the startup side, the long processes, and also not only like towards the corporate, but also internally. How do you manage this uncertainty internally in CompPair?
Yeah, thanks a lot, and thanks also a lot, Mikel and Jeff, for the different things that you have told. I think I'm totally aligned with that one, and for sure, as Jeff, you mentioned, having access to capital is one thing, but I think the power also of having, let's say, an acceleration lab also from a big corporate that also helps startups speeding up the process. And I think speed is key, like any startups. And of course, there is the capital need and the capital access on one side, but the other side for me that is really important is also building your credibility. When you go out with a spin-off from a university, you need to build your credibility. You need to build also the relationship with the corporate and show them that it works, that actually you can make something from this technology, that it works at higher scale, that you are able to work with them. And such initiative from NGK are really crucial, in my point of view, also to speed up the process. After that, there are many companies as well that are open also and that have faster processes. But that's why also at CompPair we are triggering many different, let's say, partners implementations. There are some that are public that you can see on our website, some collaborations that we have made, some others that we cannot disclose, but we are all doing that in parallel because at the end, in the materials industry, it's a B2B business, relatively high into the value chain. Sometimes it can take ages, like into the medical environment for space applications. We're speaking about almost 10 years, even more, like in the medical domain. And so for me, it's really crucial that there are initiatives that can speed up that process. And what I would be curious also to know and to have the feedback from Mikel from NGK, what is his perception as well in terms of added value for startups while speeding up this process? And how do you exchange specifically with the different business units in your group to speed up that process? Because I think it's really crucial to ensure that the startups as well can go fast and have, even if you have a commercial product that can be sold, it needs to go from a proof of concept phase at the customer place into a B2B business up to the industrialization phase. And this is what takes time as compared to B2C businesses.
Yeah, if I can just answer, right? So how can a startup add value, or how can we make it very effective? And I think this is what is interesting from the startup side, and I've seen it also from my perspective, is a lot of startups come and they said, yes, we want cash, right? And I understand that every startup wants cash, and that's also what most people believe, that the startup just need cash. And so even in the startup application that we got, we really saw the appetite for cash, and that's it. We just didn't see that they were really interested to collaborate with us. From a corporate side with a CVC fund, cash is actually, we want to help you, but there's a much bigger interest than that. We just don't want ROI. We are not a VC. We are a strategic investor. So our interest as a company is how can we potentially go beyond the investments? How can we find a way to collaborate, maybe long-term, on a bigger purpose, a bigger business model that we can maybe work together? And so if I can give an advice to all the startups out there, and this is my understanding so far working on the corporate side, is the first thing that we are checking as a company, is it in line with the current initiative we have in place? Is it something that is fitting with our strategy? Can it help long-term purposes? I give you an example. If we have an initiative, let's say on COPD, and then we see, oh, there is a startup that is monitoring a COPD patient. Oh, we don't have that monitor. Oh yeah, that could be potentially helpful, right? And I don't see enough startups that are asking these questions. What can we help? Do you have any initiative in place that we could potentially help? What are your strategy? What are the technology that you're looking for specifically? And sometimes they just come and they just want cash. And I think this is really a non-effective way to collaborate with a company. So this ability to try to get this long-term vision of the company and trying to see how you, startup, fit in that bigger vision, this is extremely helpful. Because when we are, let's say, recommending an investment for management, because at the end, it's all about convincing the board, to be honest, right? So there is financials, but it's really about why do we invest in you, and why our company should invest in that company. And the why comes from combining this vision, right? This long-term vision. And so if you can help big companies to put your company in the big picture of the company, that's really helpful. Of course, we don't want to eat you. We don't want to, just have you for us. And we really want to get this win-win. But this step of getting the why we should put you in this long-term vision is essential. And finding that is really incredible, right? And there's a lot of work to be done. But it starts by asking questions and trying to get that answer, right?
If I can jump in, I certainly highlight the cash and capital needs, but and maybe too much. I mean, I think that's certainly important, but I think as Mikel said, for us finding alignment in long-term goals and collaboration opportunities, and I will say that the experience with Hello Tomorrow as a facilitator and NGK as the corporate partner has really driven that home. And we had lots of opportunity to have discussions with NGK people at a variety of levels about those collaboration opportunities, and really to understand, as Mikel said, NGK's corporate goals, where they want to go in the future, and how we could fit into that, what technology and pieces they have today, and what they need, and the alignment at a variety of levels up to the top. So you know, as a startup, the capital, you spend lots of time talking to VCs, and in that case, it's just capital. At least for me, the interactions with a corporate like NGK are much more interesting and exciting, because then we can talk about the product and building a business together. You know, so I think it is a different conversation with a pure capital VC compared to the strategic and company like NGK. And it does drive a different conversation, and it does drive you know, a different opportunity.
Thank you, everyone. Really good inputs on this. I think the speed and how each one of the sites works, it has to be aligned, and obviously that's something that we work with at Hello Tomorrow, trying to understand both languages and trying to help well, everyone communicate. And my next question was just complemented by what James Crowell in the chat room. So it turned like to a two-ended question. It's first, like for Amaël and Jeff, regarding IP, it's expected for you like to share some data. How to handle this? How comfortable are you sharing data? How do you manage this internally? And then for Michael, like what's the expectation regarding the data, the amount of data that needs to be shared for a partnership from startup?
Good one. Good one. Let me jump on that one as well. I think on my side, you need to communicate with the CVCs like you communicate with VCs, except on the fact that, as Mikel said, we need to project, and if you want to go for a CVC, you need to know what is the strategic value of the CVC and why you're reaching to them. So this is a slight different, let's say. Then you need to choose the CVC where it makes most sense for you. In our particular case, is it a CVC that is at the same level of the value chain than we are, or further down below, or further up? And this also explains somehow what you will communicate in terms of IP. But of course, might say something that Mikel will not agree on, but we have seen sometimes some CVCs that we had the impression that they were coming for knowing the patent and to deliver a bit too much, I would say, on the questions that we were asked to deliver. And so we specifically restricted before having some first commitments. And sometimes we could realize that it was some, let's say, just observing what we're doing and trying to know what we're doing, and then see if there is an interest. And I think what is important for startups as well is, but startups and both corporates, is to be aligned on the commitments on both sides, and to be sure that we are on the same lines, and that there is not some one party that gives more than the others. So of course you need to be clear and to be careful with what you are forwarding as IP in the first discussions. But then while the relationships builds up and you have trust between each other and you have confidentiality agreements in place, then it's all good, I would say.
Yeah, I'll just added that. I like the comment you made about trust and how that builds up over time, because initially I think it's okay and probably good to be skeptical. And as Amaël said, there are certainly cases where corporate VCs funds have probably been in it for the IP or just intelligence to learn more. And as a startup, I think you need to be cautious. So, and I don't know that there's any magic there. It's just, things that are common sense. And so, putting in place NDAs where appropriate, and then discussions. And then even with an NDA, as a startup, it's our decision of what to disclose and when. So, being careful about that. And, again, I think the point that Amaël made in terms of building up trust, and that comes with a certain amount of time and conversations, and to step by step deciding what is okay to disclose and how and when.
Michael.
Yeah, so in my case, I can also comment that a little bit, because this is one of the, I would say, most recurring topics, right? When we talk to startups, and we had a discussion very early on with you tomorrow, right? Is how do we manage IP when we do a startup challenge like this, and any conversation with startups? Well, the first thing that we keep saying to startups is don't disclose what you're not comfortable disclosing. So if the startup feel, okay, that's too much, well, then the startup is completely allowed to say, well, this is too much here. And then I would say it really depends on the stage of the conversation. If it's very early, then it's totally fine to say, well, that's really too much. Now we are, for instance, with RGS and other companies, a more advanced stage. And then, I mean, at that, I would say after a few months of discussion, the startup should get the trust that we are not here to steal any information and run away with it, because we've been working for long. And then that's the trust when come in, right? The commitment of the company, are we really committed to invest or to collaborate with a startup? And the startup should also see the potential for collaboration. And then I would say the right amount of information should be shared, so a proper analysis can be made from our side, and enough information for us, you know, that we can establish that collaboration. And I think that's really a people business, and should be communication is the tool for that. Open communication, sharing, transparency, the why, who is behind that, who is going to evaluate this, where it's going to be shared, and you know, where, which location. And the more we do it, the more we explain, and the more we would say we have a timeline for it or outlook for it, and then the more effective it can be. What I can say is that there's a lot of, I would say, traditional employees sometimes that are involved in the discussion. You know, if you start to involve R&D, or if you start to involve operational departments that are maybe not so familiar with working with startups. And I've seen that in this company, in other company, sometimes there's too much right away, and they're interested in the technology. And that's, I think, just a startup should be, you know, not be surprised by that, but understanding that it comes always, and making their own restriction for that. And on the other side, what I would say is sometimes startups are too aggressive. We didn't really start conversation, and they jump right away. They want an LOI, they want you know, this commitment from the company. And when there is no analysis made from our side, especially financial whatsoever, there will not be any kind of strong commitment from our side either. So it's all about the balance and getting that mutual trust, and that happens with over communication, transparency, and time. Right? It really starts with only a few months. It gets better.
Now that you talk about time, Michael, I think timing for searching for a collaboration it's really crucial. And I guess this is a question for everyone: like, how to assess when is a good time to search for a collaboration? Is it at any time of the process of a startup? Is it better at the beginning? Is it better when it's a later stage? What do you think?
Yes, this is a very, I would say, interesting topic that I'm also passionate about. We have this discussion over and over, and what I can say based on my experience is startups want investment anytime, but the company usually are going to invest in startups that are more mature stage. And we're really talking about Series A to later. And we just having, you know, discussion about it, and I can share it with all of you guys, is when it is seed stage, there's a very low interest to invest in these companies, because we cannot really help you to scale. You first have to figure it out, your own product, and we cannot really help, right? We can really, as a scaling power, and bringing you maybe your product, existing product, hopefully with some revenue already, to the next market. So that's kind of where the company comes. However, I've also heard many discussions where we could help you early on, but don't expect an investment, but we can maybe help you validate a product, launch some pilot projects. And this can be also very effective, because you could build the time, trust, credibility over like this kind of pilot projects over a year or two. Then you're more mature, my Series A, and then it's the right time for investment. And you will also get very early priority, I would say, on the investment possibilities. And I've seen that in other companies. I was talking to other CVCs, and they were saying that they actually do always pilot projects first before investments. And I've heard that again with the investment decision maker, that this is also what they would like to have. They would like to have first this kind of project together before we go into this pure investment. So we don't really work like investors where you just your pitch deck and we just take the huge risk and we go all in. The company like usually to have this test and learn period before an investment, and that's what I can share with you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you need to have the period for investment, but what about collaborations that don't require investment? And Marie, Jeff, and Amaël, is that possible? Is it possible to collaborate with a corporate without having an investment?
I think, and as Mikel said, there is not just investment. Of course, we need money and to, let's say, bridge the gap between the company foundation and the time where we make revenues. That's for sure. And this timing can be more or less long, but you need to start the business and you need to go ahead with the business. And even if you are collaborating with big corporates, it's not necessary that they will invest in you. And at the contrary, if you make good business with them and you can go for large productions and make nice revenues, you will, at one point, you do not need business or investment anymore. And so that's the most important, is to run your business and continue your sales process for a market implementation. Because if you do that, then that's where, when you need investment, you are the most advanced. And like Mikel said, they go as of Series A. And maybe my question to Mikel as well is, you go on from Series A, and there is this rule of thumb that a Series A process is as of 1 million revenue from the startup. How can you, with the initiative that you did put in place, also bridge the gap and enable to go faster to this, let's say, rule of thumb, and build credibility to the startup as well, to ensure that then the startup for you will be in your investment thesis and in your investment criterion? Because I think from the really early days, if you're in touch with the startup and you start collaborating with them on proof of concept phases or on first implementation, even if it's small series production, you mentioned mobility sector before with like billions of parts, but even if it's like a pre-series or a limited series on a few thousands of parts, imagine the credibility that it builds for the startups when looking such kind of things that work. I think this is crucial for the startup as well, and you can have your value added in here. So are you doing that as well with startups?
So I have I can say what I've done and what I think is possible. So what you said is, okay, let's take the case where maybe the startup do not fit with the investment criteria yet, but there is a chance that the company see the potential of the startup and help the startup to bridge the gap, right? So if I'm correct, that's kind of discussion. Well, I think this is totally possible. We are not doing it right now. I know that the investment we've made, we haven't really, I would say, made that increasing the revenue of a company based on our collaboration, but this is what we're trying to do. This is what we would like to do more. And this is also what we maybe do a little bit right now with RDS, right? We are trying to find this potential co-creation for an investment, for a project, for a bigger business together, and potentially help RDS to get the revenue faster, go to market, and be bigger, and then it would be an incredible investment opportunity, even for a bigger round later on, follow up and so on, right? Because what I know is we would like to do initial investments, 1 to 5 million as a first ticket, but hopefully we follow up. We don't want to just give up. Like, as I said, it's not about this return on investments here. We're really talking about strategic investment. So they would like to do this long term. So if we can help the startup to get to the revenue, to go on the success path that we are looking at, and we can help them to get there. And we are talking about how can we do that more with startups. And if you look at healthcare, it's maybe accelerating their pilot projects in hospitals, and then we connect them and so on, right? So that's kind of the goal. This is what we want to do more, and it's totally feasible because a lot of companies are doing it already.
So from my perspective, I think it is possible to have a collaboration without an investment. I think both of those are always going to be on the table, but having some past experience with a collaboration. Now, as a startup, you probably in the back of your mind, you're thinking of, can this collaboration, where's this collaboration going to go? Is it market opportunity? Is it licensing? Or is it investment? So, I mean, that's just the nature of our thinking. So it is certainly possible to have a collaboration without an investment, but I think both always have to be on the table.
Okay, so we have now 5 minutes left, and we'll give the opportunity to people that watching us to answer some of their questions. So we have from David asking, for startups, how to know if a company that show interest is just screening the competitive landscape, or it's really interested?
I think it's a good question. I don't know that there's a simple answer. Again, communicate and ask lots of questions. I mean, I think that's really all you can do. And then in the end, it's a judgment call and trust. I will say this: the recent process with NGK, and I will highlight that Hello Tomorrow, I think, played a key role in that as a facilitator. And sort of bridging that gap. And there were certainly times when we communicated directly with NGK, and there's times when we communicated with Hello Tomorrow, and times when we communicated all together to really understand that. But there's always a judgment call at some point. Where is this heading for us? Is this a good use of resources or not? And those were internal discussions within the startup. It's relatively few people, but at the end of the day, a discussion back and forth of saying, where is this likely to go, and is this a good use of our resources? So I think it's a judgment call, but again, it's the interpersonal communications and building trust are really key to that.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, Jeff, because we were in the process together. If we are just looking for competition and asking information, or if we really consider it for investment. So every CVC wants to get the best deal ever. Every company wants to have the best company, right? So when we work with RGS, for instance, of course we look at competition and we're asking them the competition. And our hope is that they are the best. But we have to verify it if they are the best, right? But so we are trying to find a way, how can we make them the best? What is lacking? And is there really an interest for us, or just are we screening the competition and they are part of our analysis? Well, are they fitting with what we are trying to do? And the answer, in many ways was we are interested in them, and much more than just asking information, because they are fitting. And they are fitting for several reasons based on our projects. So again, on the startup perspective, if you want to find out, try to find existing initiatives in the company. And do you think the product is complementary to what they're trying to do, and do they need you? And if the answer is no, if you can find that out, then maybe they are just asking for competition. And if the answer is yes, find a way to be the best. Find a way what is lacking to be the best, and convince with a really a good competitor analysis that you are the best. Because still a lot of startups, they don't come that with a clear differentiation, and it's just really a big problem for us.
Totally agree as well. No, nothing to say more, I would say.
Okay, awesome. So
I think people look for sort of magic answers, and at the end of the day, I think a lot of it is, things that are common sense is, communication and building trust, and again, the relationship with NGK was communications at a variety of levels with a whole bunch of different people in different settings, and with the online world we have today, that was that, but it was also, in-person meetings in both Europe and the States with different stakeholders.
And on that note, I want to jump on this because I think this was crucial. And Amaël, before you ask, right, how do we interact with different, decision maker and division? Actually, this was crucial. This was one of the most important. So I'm trying to coordinate conversation with startups, but I spend much more time on, creating this conversation internally. And to build a successful collaboration, we had over 50 people involved in this kind of project. And it was really about investment team. It was about the person leading our healthcare initiative. It was talking about the R&D. It was talking about the project manager about some project that we have internally. It was talking about our head of the venture, and it was talking about the head of the division. And they all had to be in line that this is an opportunity we want to pursue. So we had several meetings to align. We let them vote to make sure that they wanted this. And when they were in and they wanted this and it was agreed on, that was a kind of a successful path, internal successful path to move forward with the company. And to build the trust with RDS and other companies, we created this 1 week sprint live, where we had several workshops. We organized, we let them meet the maximum amount of top management we could organize, because it was hard to do it. But then when we could let them meet everyone, that was powerful to build that trust, and for the startup, for our company, but also our company to believe in the startup. And that was really crucial, I must say. And we're going to continue to do that moving forward.
Thank you, Michael. So I just want to end this with a really practical question I just saw. And who should they reach out to? And I would add, like, what should they highlight? Like, what should be the subject in the email and the first paragraph? How could they call the attention, and who should they write to?
Yeah, is it I guess a question for me? I can say yes. That from a corporate perspective, right? So there is some position that are right now called alliance managers, and I see that a lot in pharma. So in pharma, I would say they are the people you can try to reach out to. There is some open innovation team around, but that's not always the case. In my case, our team, and we communicated externally, we are scouting and investing through our CVC fund. So if you talk to the people involved with the CVC fund, you can have a chance. Sometimes just reach out to the people that are part of this innovation team and just ask, do you know the person that is responsible for partnerships, without asking, just asking information about the company first can be very helpful. And last but not least, what can you communicate? Again, not just ask for investments, but what we always look is, why is this company so great? Description, market potential. We are looking for companies targeting a $1 billion market minimum, with the potential to generate $50 million revenue minimum by 2030. So if it's out of that, we don't even consider it. And then potential of collaboration. This is something we always try to identify early on. Can we potentially collaborate beyond an investment? And if you can identify that early on and do the work for us, this is amazing.
Okay. So I guess this is it. Thank you very much to Amaël, Michael, Jeff for participating. It was really, really insightful to hear from you. And thank you everyone for joining. Please head to our website to see more webinars like this coming up in the following months. And thank you everyone again for joining.
Thank you. Happy to participate.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Bye.